happy Sunday, friends and lovers. Thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir. I'm Robert Nasir. This is Amy Nasir.
Here I am, rubbing elbows with Robert Nasir.
Rubbing elbows with the father on Father's Day. Look at this. Today is Sunday, June 20th, 2021. This is 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir, and happy solstice.
Yay!
Happy longest day of the year.
Hey, you know what? We're just that much closer to Halloween.
It's always about Halloween. Why is it always about Halloween? Now, there are a few time zones where solstice is officially after midnight. In Universal Time, it's at 3:32 in the morning. But this is the longest day of the year, which also means, hey, summer. Time to party. And I mean party all the time because, why not? Let's see. Facebook's locking up again. Man, just like last week. We got to get on those people. We probably need to cut them a bigger check. I think that's probably what's going on there. Today is Sunday, June 20th, 2021, the 171st day of 2021. 194 days left in this, your best year yet. 194 days left to make it so. There are 188 days until Christmas. And strangely enough, some folks are already counting down 19 Fridays until Halloween.
That would be me.
That would be Amy. That's 135 days.
I need to figure out how to boost our display, our Halloween display. We did a really great Halloween display last year because I was homebound and it was a little easier to do. So this year I need to do some addition.
Even more than we did in 2020?
If anybody has any suggestions for how we might decorate our front yard, just let me know. I appreciate it.
Well, on this day, June 20th, we wish a happy birthday to John Taylor.
Yes.
John Taylor, the bass player of Duran Duran and the Power Station and some other projects. John is 61 years old today. He's older than me. He's also a much better bass player than I am. Links in the show notes, because you should be watching Duran Duran videos. I mean, the video for Rio just set the tone for MTV for years. Outstanding stuff. Happy 61st birthday. And really, Amy and I had a long conversation this week about the 80s versus the 90s.
As we always do.
And everybody knows Amy is an 80s girl.
We did a survey of the different songs from the 1990s about, the more popular songs and then the more alternative popular songs.
It's funny, you think you know what the 90s were, but then you go back and listen to the top 40, what was actually on the radio, and you're like, oh, okay, so it wasn't all Nirvana and Creed. There was actually some good stuff.
Yeah, and it wasn't all
Nickelback
or Counting Crows.
Counting Crows, Smashing Pumpkins.
But the 90s were the decade where alternative music that was no longer defined. It didn't exist anymore. All music was just there, and alternative music that used to belong in the 80s was now mainstream.
It's
basically.
Funny. They called it. What did they call it? Well, we had alt punk.
Yeah.
And it had a punk ethos, and it was alternate to pop music, but it was mainstream. It wasn't alternate. Well, anyway, I won't complain about music anymore because it's also National Ice Cream Sunday, or excuse me, National Ice Cream Soda Day. So, if you needed a good and compelling reason to have an ice cream soda, that's all the reason you need. So, we've got ice cream sodas.
Oh, we do. Oh my goodness, look at this.
And here's what I want to know. As you can see, mine is very creamy looking, and that's because it's vanilla ice cream in Werner's ginger ale. Amy's is darker looking because hers is a root beer float. Her ice cream soda for National Ice Cream Soda Day. So we've had holidays where we have eaten and drank things during the show, which is very rude to do.
So rude, Robert.
But it's National Ice Cream Soda Day. How could I resist?
You really like Werner's for some reason. I've tried it with ice cream, and I don't know.
Amy's a Canada Dry ginger ale girl.
Yeah, I mean, Werner's is okay, but Canada Dry for ginger ale, or even like a nice deep ginger beer. But I don't have ice cream with it. But now root beer, or sarsaparilla, as they used to call it, now that's great.
You can keep talking. I'm still eating.
Tell me how you feel in
Now
the chat here.
this is the question for the chat. What is your favorite ice cream soda? You know, you could take this and mix it up in a blender and make it a Boston Cooler, and that counts too. So, what is your favorite ice cream soda, or do you do ice cream soda? And down south, do they call it ice cream Coke?
Right. Mary Aline says, "How about Rossini versus Puccini, a timeless battle?" I'm sure.
There's some drama.
I'm sure I know what that means in the context of.
It would be the epic opera battle.
But what does it have to do with ice cream sodas?
I don't know. I think she's just looking for the next great conflict.
That's true.
But yes, what's your favorite ice cream soda? I'm going to add a little extra Vernors here. Of course, it all foams up like crazy, so you got to do this a little at a time. So worth it.
Oh, Petia says she's never tried an ice cream soda.
Never had an ice cream soda. What you do?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I was going to make a joke and say the way to make an ice cream soda is you take some soda, which some people call pop, which some people call soda pop, which some people call Coke. Pick a nice light soda like a ginger ale or a root beer and put some ice cream in it. But it's funny because in the show notes, which will be attached to the show right after the show, there is a link to recipes for ice cream sodas. There's actually recipes. Some people will put like syrup in the glass first before adding everything in. So you could make a butter beer.
Oh yeah, butter beer. Yes. Put a little butterscotch schnapps in there.
Yeah, butterscotch beer. Really a butterscotch soda.
Yeah.
A la Harry Potter.
That's right.
So you can have a lot of fun with National Ice Cream Soda Day.
Now, when we say ice cream soda, here in the Midwest or in Michigan, oftentimes you'll hear it as ice cream float.
Yeah, float.
So basically the ice cream is floating in the pop, as we call it here in Michigan, pop instead of soda. Although we never say Coke as a generic term for carbonated beverages.
No. What kind of Coke do you want? Coke?
I would like a Pepsi Coke, please. That's what they do in the South anyway. But ice cream float. And then if you want a Boston Cooler, that is blended Vernors with ice cream, blended in a blender. So it's like a shake. But that also has, I forget exactly what they call the root beer and ice cream blended. I forget.
A Black Cow?
Maybe a Black Cow.
Mary Aline says in her day they called them ice cream floats.
Ah, yes.
Excellent.
Jennifer says, pop, pop.
Well, Jennifer also says, my Grams used to drink Vernors. What is she saying? I know, I used to drink Vernors too. Jennifer, I still drink Vernors, and get the hell off my lawn. That's harsh.
Oh, Jennifer says, what's an egg cream? I don't know. I've heard that term.
Somebody will have to share that with us.
Yeah, if you know what an egg cream is, please. I'd love to know.
And Jim is outing us. He's reminding us we have a skeleton in the closet, which is actually true.
We do. However, it's not actually human. It's made of...
Don't. Are you about to give away the secret?
It's made of an organism made of plastic.
Oh, spoiler. Man. Never ruin the magic. Anyway, finally, it is Father's Day. So a happy Father's Day to everybody out there who is a father, or everybody out there who has a father, or ever had a father, or has any appreciation whatsoever for fathers. Father's Day is a complicated holiday for me. I had a strange childhood, but I do love the fathers out there. I especially give a shout out to my two brothers, who are both excellent fathers. So happy Father's Day, Paul. Happy Father's Day, Michael.
And your other brother is a pet father.
That's true. Rob is a dog father.
Yes. He's a doggy father.
Which makes it sound like I'm dyslexic, but no, he is the dog father. So happy Father's Day there too. And what are we listening to this week? Well, we watched Life of Brian again, so we will listen to that. Been listening to the new Styx album. Their previous one, The Mission, was a little disappointing for some of the hardcore fans. I think you're going to like this one much better. I've also been listening to a podcast by Jay Shetty called On Purpose, or On Purpose. And if you know who Jay Shetty is, British television presenter, a guy who went away for a few years to study with a monk, to live as a monk, and then came back with the various wisdom lessons that he learned. Interesting podcast, sometimes good stuff. And this time he did a show on 7 time management habits. I recommend listening to it. It was a good one. This is the June 18th episode. Link will be in the show notes. And there were a few on there that were good reminders for me, stuff that I've fallen off the wagon on, and a few habits that just are worth thinking about. So he addresses, for example, the question of multitasking versus single tasking. Getting better work done versus getting more things done poorly or not done at all. The idea is, the claim that he makes, and you see if this rings true with you, is that 2% of the people in the world are actually able to multitask effectively. They essentially have a multi-track mind that has no problem being equally effective with 1 or 2 tasks. And 98% of us can't. And multitasking invariably leads to poorer performance than simply doing things sequentially, focusing on one thing at a time.
Not necessarily. It really depends on what you're doing.
It does, and later on, that's his habit number 1 is single task versus multitask. But the funny thing is, way later in the show, his habit number 6 is habit stacking for things that we do with ease or can do on autopilot.
Aha!
So essentially, he says...
He's contradictory.
He says, don't multitask unless you should. And I actually like that. I like nuanced answers to things. And that's true. Avoid multitasking when it is something that will benefit from your focus. Only multitask where you're listening to a podcast while you're doing the dishes. Don't multitask while you're watching a television program and making love to your wife. Some things just aren't as good to multitask during. That was not Shetty's insight, but I think it holds true.
Well, he spent all that time with the monks.
Yes.
He probably is not into that.
And what does Jay Shetty and time management habits got to do with anything? Well, the other thing I'm listened to this week, yesterday while I was out on my bicycle and didn't get in an accident this time, excuse me, was James Valiant leading the Ayn Rand Centre UK's podcast on Leonard Peikoff's course, Objectivism Through Induction. Mm-hmm. Okay, so philosophy based on facts of reality, led by the awesome James Valiant. And in the Q&A, I got on late. I was out on the bicycle, riding around, listening. I'm on this Zoom call. Is this amazing? I'm on a Zoom call, on a bicycle, on my smartphone, on my wireless AirPods. We are surrounded by miracles, not least of which is ourselves. So I'm listening to the tail end of this. And on the Q&A, an attendee mentioned a friend of his. He said, I've got this friend who has explicitly adopted the maxim, happiness is not about getting what we want. It's about appreciating what we have. And I thought, okay, that kind of resonates with me. I get that. I've read that before, and I thought, well, yeah, there's a good insight. But James Valiant, who is about 3 times smarter than I am, maybe 3.5, said, oh yeah, that's a terrible thing. And the questioner went on to explain his friend, because he realizes happiness is not about getting what we want, it's about appreciating what we have, has dropped the concept of ambition in his life. And he's just taking it easy. He has no great ambitions. He's just trying to enjoy his life the way it is. And James rightly said, well, that means you have no standards, you have no values. If you're just going to accept whatever is, but life requires that you produce the values life requires, well, that's not a good thing. So it was interesting to me because, again, it's one of those expressions that kind of resonates with me. I get it. It's a reminder that, as the philosopher Ferris Bueller tells us, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you might miss it. That's the way I think. Hearing James talk about it, I'm like, oh, yeah, he's right. Of course, nobody actually says, well, I'm not going to bother to make anything. I'm just going to appreciate what I've got. Because you're either green and growing, or you're ripe and rotting, and there is nothing in between. In other words, your values don't last unless you continue to create them and sustain them. But that was interesting to me, and it got me thinking about this topic of ambition. You know, Seneca said, "It's not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." And this was another idea that contradicted everything that James said, and James is absolutely right. It's not necessarily the case that you constantly expect more, you constantly need more, that you're unsatisfied when you accept that you've got to be ambitious, that you've got to create, that you've got to have purpose, that you've got to have values. I immediately thought of the Sheryl Crow version of that. It's not having what you want, it's wanting what you've got. If it doesn't get any more hippy-dippy than, you know, I want to walk in the sun.
Oh my gosh, look at all these slides Robert has today.
Well, cool. I couldn't resist. Because again, this stuff, I read this stuff and it works for me. It makes sense to me. It's like, I've done all of these things and I always want more, but I need to settle down and enjoy some of what I've created.
Yes.
I've created Studio Nasir, where we can film a podcast. I've got this great marriage. I've got my dream car, which is now 8 years old. You know, at some point, you've got to rev that engine back up. You've got to stay ambitious. It made me think, well, why does that happen? Why do you get this friend of the questioner of the James Valiant-led podcast? Why do you get this guy who says, if I'm going to be happy with what I've got to drop the concept of ambition?
Because he might be defining ambition incorrectly?
He might. What I thought, because I've seen this before, in these philosophical types, you know, these people who are always talking about philosophy, always thinking about abstract ideas, big ideas about life, and rarely applying them to life, is that when they address the topic of ambition, how much ambition is enough? Well, either you believe in ambition, and that means you're always ambitious, always scrambling for more, never satisfied, always going for the next, the bigger, better deal, the next thing. Or you don't believe in ambition and you drop the concept altogether. In other words, a lot of philosophical types aren't too good at integration. They're not too good at context keeping. They're not too good at nuance. They're not too good at saying, well, some of this. That's what I see.
So Jennifer says, sounds like Buddha, getting rid of desires, that kind of idea of like, well, it's that whole...
the Eastern philosophy of no values because values tie you to earth.
Bernie Sanders, and there's too many types of deodorants out there. He can't pick. He can't choose. He just can't choose any of them. Just can't pick one.
That's right. How are we supposed to contend with 20 different deodorant brands? What a malevolent universe
so funny.
That capitalism
Him
produces.
and his crazy winter gloves.
Yes.
So
yeah, it got me thinking, well, what is ambition? And how do we answer that question of, well, how should we regard ambition? How ambitious should we be? What role should that concept play in our life? So I always go to the dictionary because I want to define the terms before I have the conversation. Otherwise, we may be talking about entirely different things. Merriam-Webster says, ambition is an ardent desire for rank, fame, or power. In other words, all relative. Me relative to everybody else. Or a desire to achieve a particular end. Well, that's more reasonable. Cambridge says, a strong wish to achieve a particular thing. A strong wish to be successful. Okay, but strong wish sounds wishy-washy. So that's not good. But Oxford always does a little better. Oxford says, desire and determination to achieve success. I thought I'd go with that. Until it occurred to me, of course, who always defines her terms before talking about them?
Oh.
Ayn Rand does.
Oh, yeah, that Ayn Rand lady.
So I looked through all of my Ayn Rand resources, couldn't find anything, and I'm like, maybe it's in the Lexicon. So I went to the Ayn Rand Lexicon, and sure enough, ambition means the systematic pursuit of achievement and of constant improvement in respect to one's goal. It's great that she can give you a single sentence there that hits all four of the marks that give this word meaning. It's not just the wishing or even the grit and determination. It's also the fact that there's a goal involved, specific value.
Yes, there has to be a goal involved. And, colloquial kind of or normal definition of ambition, or a lot of people think about it is that, well, if you have, it can be completely misinterpreted or irrational, I should say. It could be completely irrational. It could be like Ayn Rand's friend from the studio who wants to have, 2 homes if their friend has 1 home, and 3 cars if their friend has 2 cars.
That's right. I don't have any particular values other than more than she's got.
Right, which is actually not, it's not purposeful, and it's not valuable, because you're not, that kind of person isn't actually first-handedly defining what their goals are, and why they want it, and why these things are good for them, and what it's going to bring them, and whether or not they even like it. But I like this Ayn Rand's definition here, because it addresses, not just, gaining things. Like, I have the ambition to get a new job, but you can also have ambition to improve the one that you have. So systematic pursuit of achievement and of constant improvement in respect to one's goal. Whatever your goal is, doesn't have to be new. It could actually be something that you already have. Yeah,
and systematic. It's not a mad, irrational scramble.
Right.
That is ambitious.
Yes.
But a rational pursuit, a systematic pursuit. Love that. So obviously, we've talked about purpose, and there's a connection between purpose and ambition. And rather than try to make that connection, I'm just going to read Peikoff. Leonard Peikoff in Objectivism, the Philosophy of Ayn Rand. The principle of purpose means conscious goal-directedness. See, Ayn Rand talks about a goal. Means conscious goal-directedness in every aspect of one's existence where choice applies. The man of purpose defines explicitly his abstract values, and then, in every area, the specific objects he seeks to gain and the means by which to gain them. Whether in regard to work or friends, love or art, entertainment or vacations, he knows what he likes and why, and then goes after it. Using Aristotelian terminology, Ayn Rand often says that this kind of man acts not by efficient causation, a mere reaction to stimuli, but by final causation, finis in Latin meaning end. He is the person with a passionate ambition for values, who wants every moment and step of his life to count in their service. Love that.
That's really nice.
Yes. It says, it is not drudgery or duty, but something good. Mm-hmm. And one more quote from Ayn Rand, and then we'll go on. Because I realize that ambition ambition is not a primary virtue, but it relates directly to a primary virtue. Some folks out there have probably already chimed in with that. I'm speaking too fast to keep up with the chat. Let me know if I've missed it. But
it's just me and Jennifer fooling around.
Good. Well, that's the fun. See, I got to catch up on that. So what virtue does ambition relate directly to? I immediately thought productivity, but no. I mean, yes, but... Mm-hmm. From Atlas Shrugged, pride is the recognition of the fact that you are your own highest value. And like all of man's values, it has to be earned. That of any achievements open to you, the one that makes all others possible, is the creation of your own character. That your character, your actions, your desires, your emotions are the products of the premises held by your mind. That as man must produce the physical values he needs to sustain his life, so he must acquire the values of character that make his life worth sustaining. That as man is a being of self-made wealth, so he is a being of self-made soul. That to live requires a sense of self-value. But man, who has no automatic values, has no automatic sense of self-esteem, and must earn it by shaping his soul in the image of his moral ideal, in the image of man. The rational being, he is born able to create, but must create by choice. That the first precondition of self-esteem is that radiant selfishness of soul that desires the best in all things, in values of matter and spirit, a soul that seeks above all else to achieve its own moral perfection, valuing nothing higher than itself. In this sense, close quote, in that sense, well, let me quote from The Virtue of Selfishness. I was about to paraphrase something she actually said. The virtue of pride can best be described by the term moral ambitiousness.
Yes.
And that's where one of the areas in which she agrees 100% with Aristotle, who regarded pride as the end result, or as he said, the crown of the virtues. Moral ambitiousness. Love, love, love that. So when I read the Peikoff quote, I realized he was saying what I've said more poetically or more sloppily when I said, it comes down to this. Live the best life you can. You were gifted a life, free and clear. You were born. And as everything is finite, one day you're going to die. So make of your life what you will as you wish. As bold and adventurous, or as silly and outrageous, or as ambitious and industrious, or as quiet and pleasant as you like. Well, that sounds maybe a little woo, right? A little touchy-feely there, but are you touchy-feelying
yeah.
me?
Yes, I am.
But that's why I had to reread the Peikoff quote. He also says this: the principle of purpose sanctions deliberate rest or relaxation, but condemns a course of drifting or of inaction. It condemns any form of being moved through one's days by the power of accident, such as a man's falling into a job, or an affair, or a philosophy, or even a movie theater, simply because it or she happens to be there, and to look further is too much trouble. A man who drops purpose turns himself into a cipher, who evades his own nature, defaults on the responsibility of focus, and abdicates his power of choice. The end of ethics, self-preservation, cannot be achieved in a single stroke. It depends on a continuous rational process, a process of pursuing derivative values that entail specific kinds of goals in every area of one's concern. The pursuit of purpose is thus what human life consists of, concretely. In this sense, purpose is at once the essence of human life and the means of preservation. Mm-hmm. And that's why, close quote, and that's why when we did our episode on purpose, and several times since then I've said, in any given moment you should know your purpose. You should know why you're doing what you're doing. And again, even if it's something casual or comfortable or relaxing, restful, even if it's just a phone call to your child or your mother, or your father, I should say, on Father's Day.
Yes.
Even if you're just calling somebody to say hi, to make a connection, to make sure that they know that you're thinking about them, if you know that, and again, not just feel it, but know it explicitly, that phone call will be better. You will have a better experience. If you know why you're taking a nap, and you can determine, I'm going to take a nap, I'm going to give myself a maximum of 45 minutes, I'll set a timer, when I get up, here's what I'll do next.
Yeah.
If you know in any given moment the purpose of what you're doing, you will achieve a better result, you will achieve your values. And Peikoff's on my side, so... Like that's the way that happened. I'm sure I read Peikoff and put this together in my own little way.
Goodness. For objectivists, instead of saying God is on my side, we say Peikoff
is on my side. Peikoff is my co-pilot.
Sorry for offending anybody if we're being terribly irreverent.
Terribly irreverent. I posted in the Facebook group, the John Galt line about humor,
yes,
and said, irreverence can go too far. Sometimes irreverence is irreverent, or as in knocking against reverence and knocking against your values.
Anti-reverent.
Anti-reverent, yes. You don't want to be anti-reverent. You can be irreverent. You can be whimsical without being whim-worshipping. But there is a difference, and it does matter. Excuse me, I was reading from the Objectivist Ethics.
Oh, more content,
Just
folks.
one more quote.
Robert's just digging into it.
Well, since man's ambition is unlimited. Mm-hmm. Ooh, unlimited. That sounds like a bit of a burden there, but let's see. Since man's ambition is unlimited, since his pursuit and achievement of values is a lifelong process, and the higher of the values, the harder the struggle, Man needs a moment, an hour, or some period of time in which he can experience the sense of his completed task, the sense of living in a universe where his values have been successfully achieved. It is like a moment of rest, a moment to gain fuel, to move further. Art gives him that fuel. Now here she's talking about art, but Leonard Peikoff makes the case in the earlier quote that life also requires rest and relaxation. It requires every value that's out there that is within your hierarchy of values. So my bottom line, and tell me in the chat if you think I'm nuts.
You're nuts, Robert.
Well, I know you think I'm nuts. My bottom line is two things. Some but any, and pen and paper. What I mean by some but any is you need a reasonable determination of how much ambition is consistent with your values. And that has to be some amount, some degree of ambition. It may be a very large amount, it may be a modest amount. It needs to be consciously chosen and consistent with your values. But how do you figure out what that is? Am I ambitious enough? Am I too ambitious? Am I missing out on other values in my life because my nose is constantly to the grindstone? And what I realized in having these discussions is that the answer to that is all you need to do is consider every other thing in your life. Mm-hmm. Well, that's complicated.
Well, I think you need to write down what's going on in your life, perhaps.
Well, that's why the second is pen and paper. So, a reasonable determination of how much some is, some ambition, it's got to be an amount. A reasonable determination depends on your values, depends on your resources, depends on your available time and energy. It depends on your present career, your family, your living arrangements, your commitments, your obligations. It depends on your psychology and your philosophical sense of life. So, given all of that, what do? You grab a pen and you grab a pad of paper. At least that's what I do. As we've discussed, make notes, brainstorm. If you know your value hierarchy, if you've done, as we've talked about in the past, followed Andrew Bernstein's advice, or several people's advice, Gene Moroney's advice, to have an ordered hierarchy of values, know what your top 3 are, know what your top 10 are, know what your values are, that's great. If not, time to start writing. Mm-hmm. And then once you've sketched it out, decide, as of this moment, for me that's June 20, 2021, what actions and what results am I committed to? Because it's not really a question just of how much ambition, but what does that look like in reality in the context of my values in my life? The answer to the question, how much ambition should I have, depends on who you are, what you want. Yeah. Tell me those 3 things. I could help you come up with an answer.
Yeah, Mary Aline actually has a question. She says, how does one measure ambition?
Well, since it covers a range of values, I think its scope would have to be general. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm using terms like modest or great ambition. Mm-hmm. And like most of those kinds of values, you could measure them ordinally. You could say, well, I'm more ambitious than my father was, who was happy to be in one job his whole life and had a marriage that was happy but not passionate. I'm more ambitious than that. I'm less ambitious than Ayn Rand or Steve Jobs. So you could measure it ordinally. I don't know that you could measure it with numbers or cardinally. Mm-hmm. But that, I think, is how you measure ambition. Not to be comparing to other people, but just using other people as concretes.
Right. That's actually one of the values that I find in reading biographies. Not to compare myself to other people.
No, but it tells you what's possible.
I'm completely unique compared to them.
Yes.
But yeah, in terms of what's possible, in terms of, giving me ideas as to, perhaps even kind of egg me on and help me with my own sense of ambition.
Yes.
Yep.
There can be great inspiration in comparing yourself to other people if what you're comparing is not their values to how you feel about their values, but your values to actual values you hold firsthand.
Yes.
Because I've said before, other people are the second best thing in the world.
This is very true.
And they can be that. So,
Yes.
do you have anything in the chat other than that we need to respond to before I start putting a bow on this?
Oh, well, sure. Well,
I feel like I'm missing out because I haven't been reading as much.
well, me, Jennifer, and Jim especially me and Jennifer, are being very funny with, it was the whole touchy-feely thing. And so Jennifer posted a image of an octopus, and she's like, 8 legs to touch you with. Anyway, just a bunch of silly stuff. However, Jim does have a question for you. He has a special request. Can you reread Burton Braley's poem again?
Oh, goodness, how can I resist?
And I actually have it up here if you want to
Do
read
you?
from here. Yeah.
Oh, great.
So let me get this a little bit bigger. Oops. La 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 la.
Yeah, I haven't memorized it yet, but thanks for bringing it up to me.
Yeah, how's that?
Yeah, well, Burton Braley is great with anything to do with life and work and ambition and fun. It's just fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, his poem called Essential.
Yes.
I've seen it published as Ambish before, but Essential. And he writes, "You'll never get anywhere, never do anything, never be anyone much. No honor or fame will accrue to your name. You'll never have wealth in your clutch. Unless you go striving for, doggedly driving for, seeking the thing that you wish. How do some guys manage to rise? Take it from me, it's ambish. Although you have cleverness, brains, and ability, plenty of deftness and skill, the thing that you need if you hope to succeed is courage and power of will. Without pertinacity, all your capacity leaves you a failure, poor fish. How do the great get to that state? I've got the answer. Ambish. You'll hear it called restlessness, wanton irreverence, discontent, lunacy too. But it is the force that alters life course and makes the world over anew. The one irrepressible, strange and unguessable, cosmic unwavering wish. How did we climb out of the slime? You tell him, buddy. Ambish." That's so much fun. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Jim.
Good stuff. So my homework for the week, having reviewed this topic of ambition as it grew out of the conversations we had on our previous show on purpose and then this Ayn Rand Centre UK study group, my homework is to renew my resolutions, my ambitions for this year. So folks who were here at the beginning of the year know that I had some lofty resolutions or ambitions, goals, and 2 of them are especially challenging to achieve. One of them I'm halfway there, and we're halfway through the year, so that's okay. My first ambition, my first resolution for 2021 is to get this podcast up to 1,000 subscribers. Mm-hmm. The second ambition was to get my income, the money that I'm bringing in, primarily as a result of this podcast, but also through my writing, up to where it was when I left my IT career. Now, those 2 things I need your help with. You didn't know I was going to be reaching out to you, but I am. I do need your help with that. And the reason is, if you have any interest, if you're willing or able, I need you to share the show out. I'm going to be doing some more things to try to get more publicity, get more sharing out the show, getting more people aware of it. I had a few new folks come to me this week and say, I didn't know you were even doing this kind of thing. Why have I not heard of Life on Earth on the Ayn Rand Centre UK or 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir on Sundays at 6 o'clock? I'm like, I don't know. We've been doing it for over a year, and I've been talking about it on all the social networks, but, Twitter and Facebook and MeWe and the other ones that I'm on, that only gets you so far. And me sharing it only gets it to people who already know me. So if you have any interest in helping us spread the word, then please spread the word. Share the show out. Subscribe to it on YouTube if you're not already. You can ring the bell. You can click the little bell there and it will notify you when there's a show. And that helps YouTube increase our appearances within their algorithms. If somebody's looking for things related to purpose or things related to wisdom or things related to irreverence, however it is they pigeonholed our show. And I've put tag words and all that in there. And search engine optimization, I've got all that in effect. But we need more shares for that to bear fruit. So if you like, if you're interested, if you're willing, please share the show out. And if you're not already subscribed on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the show. Thank you. You will earn our undying gratitude. Yes. The third thing, I'm halfway there, which was getting back in shape, getting my fitness level back to, or at least the one measurable, which is my weight, back to my wedding weight. And that one I'm halfway there. I'm more than halfway there, and it's less than halfway through the year, so that's looking good. Getting back to a six-figure income and getting 1,000 subscribers, that one's looking more iffy. So I'm going to be jump-starting that. Step one of my homework is decide if these are still my goals and whether they're realistic. Step two is to take one concrete, specific step toward their fulfillment. Did I mention I've been bicycling every other day? Mm-hmm. And then I'm also going to try some of Jay Shetty's tips for time management and see how those apply to our previous episodes on goal setting and on habits. When we talked about James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, a few of the other things that we've done on the show, including some things I've let fall by the wayside. So I'm going to be revisiting basically my own advice and all the advice I've picked up from other people. If you want to join me in this week's homework, you can do this too. Review your resolutions or goals for the year. Decide if they're still your goals and resolutions, and decide if they're realistic. If so, and they can be audacious. I love them audacious. That's why mine are kind of out there. But if you've decided they're still your goals, take one concrete, specific step toward their fulfillment. If you listen to that Jay Shetty episode, he actually divides these things out by month. He has a month-long project. Each week, he has a target for the week, and then each day he has a specific task related to that weekly target. I may give that a shot because I organize on paper in a planner, but not that way. So, homework for the week. Review your resolutions, decide if they're still your resolutions, take one concrete step in regard to each one of them if you want to join me on that journey. And that's going to be fun.
Well, I must say that's quite an ambitious project you have there, Robert.
It is quite an ambitious, it's a ridiculous project. There's no way I can make all three of those things happen. And yet, there are people who do that.
Yes. It can be done.
You've got the guy, you take a guy, take a gal, take away all of their identification, take away all of their cash and money, put them in, blue jeans and a t-shirt in the middle of a city they've never been in before and tell them, okay, now I want you to achieve the same degree of success you had 24 hours ago. And there are people who will do this as a challenge. They won't fall back on their previous fame and fortune, but they will go out there and hustle, and they will make that happen. The point is not that I want to do anything like that. But one of the things I believe about life is that we are each and every one of us, you listening to this right now, me sitting here, Amy, you right there, everybody, we are each of us capable of far more, not than we're doing right now, to hell with that. We are each of us capable of far more than we realize, far more than we even think we're capable of. I said we are surrounded by miracles, not least of which is ourselves. That implies we can do miracles. And we can if we mean things that transcend what on a day-to-day basis we think we're capable of. Read Andrew Bernstein's early story, Heart of a Pagan. There are people who've done that. They have taken what essentially was a crippling or debilitating condition, and through enormous pain and sheer will, they have brought themselves up out of it. Now, reality comes first. There's only so much you can do, but we far underestimate what we're capable of. So you're right. My goals are audacious and maybe even ridiculous. Let's find out. If you've got any like that, join me. It's fun. It's fun stuff. It's good stuff. And hey, I've got accountability partners because I just told the hundreds of people who listen to this show that by the end of the year, there's going to be thousands of people listening to this show.
Yes. We have a great question from Jim. He says, do you think, as I do, that some people choose not to be ambitious because they are simply terrified of failure?
Yes.
Yes.
I think some people do that. The only thing I caution once you see that that's true about people out there, that most people are cowards, or most people are insecure, or most people just aren't sure. That's not the one answer. There's nobody out there who's afraid of failure, and that's the only reason they don't take action. And that's one of the things I've learned is that if there's a primary reason for something, it's probably not the only reason. And by addressing that primary reason, you might find you don't get the result. So once you figure it out, you're right. For most people, they're just afraid of failure. They're afraid of embarrassment. They're afraid of disappointment. They're afraid of having to relive all the times they've failed in the past to experience that disappointment again. But there is more to it than that. There's just fear that comes from uncertainty. There's also, and I'm sure Jim has heard of this, but maybe some of the younger people aren't familiar with this idea, there's fear of success.
Right.
There are people who are afraid to succeed, and there are so many reasons for that.
Yeah, Jennifer just said that.
Oh, see, Jennifer, anybody who's been around for a while, any of us who are over 30 or 40 have heard that concept, fear of success. Mm-hmm. And there are 10 different reasons for that. It's not just, I'll be uncomfortable if I am at this elevated level and I won't know how to be around people, and, I'm afraid I'll lose all my previous friendships. There's also the fear that I won't be able to keep it up. I won't be able to sustain it. There's the fear of imposter syndrome. I made it, but I'm not really that good, and people will find out. There are many reasons why we have fear of success. So Jim, you're absolutely right. Fear of failure might be the number one demotivating thing, but it's not the only one. So anytime I catch myself thinking, I finally figured out why I'm not doing X, it's a good time for brainstorming. Figure out what else is contributing to that, and you're far more likely to be able to overcome that hurdle or make progress in that area. It's a great question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, well, we are still open for questions if anybody has any, and of course, I just posted on the thing in the chat, not the thing, in YouTube and Facebook, robertnasir.com. You can find, that's where we have the link to our Patreon. That's where we have a link to everything, the YouTube and everything.
Yes. I can give the closing notes here real quick. As always, show notes. I get the radio broadcaster voice when I do the end of the show. As always, show notes with links to all of the websites and other content we've discussed will be posted right after the show. Questions, comments, and suggestions can be posted to the 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir Facebook group. If you would like to support what we do, and especially if you'd like to help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers, please like and subscribe on YouTube, click the bell to be notified when we go live, and share the episode on social media. If you'd like to help keep the lights on in Studio Nasir here, consider making a contribution via PayPal or a monthly through Patreon. The links for both of those are at robertnasir.com. Thank you so much to everyone who already does. I'm not doing the... no, I won't say his name. I'm not doing the telethon thing. The people who are contributing, I love you for it. Don't feel if you don't have that, $5 or $10 a month to give, that you should be doing it. The other thing you can do is if you get us more subscribers.
Yes.
If we've got 5% of the people listening to this show giving a couple dollars a month, and we've got 200 people listening, well, if we turn that into 1,000 subscribers, we turn that into 1,000 people, that number, that dollars and cents number goes up by 5 times too. So thank you if you're contributing. If you want to contribute, we'd love for you to do it. But if you can share the show, if you can get us more subscribers, that's going to solve the money end of it right there. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. And one last comment that I have is that if you want to, one of the things that I think about when we're talking back and forth and everything is, who can I share this out to? These particular topics and concepts that we're talking about, things that are, life struggles perhaps, or things that we're trying to overcome, things we're trying to get better at. So if you like these particular comments and topics and everything, and you have a particular person in mind that might need those words of encouragement or that information or this resource, you are absolutely certainly welcome to share that out. We try to keep this I know we're very objectivisty, but we try to keep this
Yeah,
general.
The 5-minute show is well, it's Robert and Amy. It's a Robert Nasir thing.
Yeah.
That's why it's called 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir. When I do the Life on Earth show on Thursday afternoons, that's under the auspices of the Ayn Rand Centre UK. And I might be a little more careful about not saying anything that might be judged, I don't want to say inconsistent, but just orthogonal to Ayn Rand's ideas.
Yeah.
This show's about you and me. This show's about us. And so I'm trying to reach the broader audience with this show. I would love it if every Ayn Rand fan and objectivist out there, and there's got to be 100, 200,000 out there, that would be my best guess, with a million Ayn Rand fans out there. If they all listen to Life on Earth, that would be great. But I want to reach the rest of the world with this show. And if that means the rest of the world hears Ayn Rand's ideas a little more, that'll be a
so
beautiful
much
thing
the better.
too. But yes, Amy's right. Amy's right. If we talk about something and there's somebody who's not an Ayn Rand fan,
Yeah.
but has had a challenge, for example, finding focus in their life, send them our episode on focus. Has had difficulty defining their purpose, you could send them our episode on purpose, or even this episode.
Right. And if you have any suggestions for topics for the future for us, that would be wonderful. Please
Yes.
pass them along. If you have any friends or relatives that are struggling with some sort of question, even if it's somewhat even more concrete. We are here to be your Miss Manners or your Dear Abby or whatever, however you want to put that. But yeah, we will answer those questions.
Yes. Oh, see, Jim mentions the Paul Harvey voice. Since I'm doing stupid voices, and I don't think I can do a good Paul Harvey, other than his name. Everybody remembers how he would say his name. Paul Harvey. Good day. Yes, that's there's a memory for there. It also probably dates me, but that's okay because it dates Jim too. And I probably should find a more professional show wrap, because we generally wrap the show in earnest, because we really do. At the end of the show, we want to wish you success, and we wish you happiness. And today we wish you the drive and determination that will lead you to that success. We did a show called Grit about determination. And if this show was interesting to you and you haven't heard that one, search for 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir Grit on YouTube and listen to it. I think it was really good. You can also find it on Apple Podcasts. We're on all the audio platforms too. Although you don't get to see Amy's pretty face if you listen on the audio platform only. On the other hand, then you don't have to look at me. So it all balances out, whatever works for you. But we do wish you success and happiness. We do wish you the drive and determination that will lead you to success, and the happiness that I believe you so richly deserve. And with that said, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
One more thing.
Mm-hmm.
We wish you love.